One of the most difficult parts of being a musician, and especially I think a classical musician, at least for me personally, is performance anxiety. I've done lots of performing in my life, like theater. I've sang in front of people. I've acted and done all these things. I've danced in front of people, and I never honestly felt nervous doing any of those things. But when I play classical guitar and classical music in front of an audience, it is a whole different ballgame, and I get very nervous. And I think it's partially due to just the kind of classical world specifically. I've played electric guitar in worship bands and acoustic guitar in front of people, and for whatever reason, I don't feel that nervous playing those styles of music. It's the classical one that makes me freak out sometimes. And I think maybe that's partly just because there's so many incredible classical musicians out there that the standard is so high, and that when you perform in front of people, you want to reach that same level and that same standard. Sometimes you might feel like you put all this hard work and effort into learning your piece, and then when you want to communicate that to your public audience, it doesn't quite come across how you practiced it at home. And oftentimes I really feel like after a performance, I feel like, man, if I could go back on stage and just play my performance one more time, it would be like flawless and perfect because I've got all the jitters out and everything. But that's not how it works. You only get one shot usually, and sometimes if it doesn't go as well as you liked, sometimes you leave the concert feeling maybe a little bit discouraged. I know for me that a lot of times can be the case. In this video, we're going to talk about performance anxiety and how you can overcome it and how you can get better at it. So I'm going to give you guys 3 kind of practical things that you can do that if you do those 3 things, I think you will get better. And then we're going to talk about some more kind of psychological mindset aspects that I think will also help you. So like I said, one of the most frustrating things can be that you spend all this time, you spend days, hours, months, maybe even years sometimes perfecting a piece and trying to learn it as best you can, and you do. And then when you get up and you play it in front of people, you feel like, man, like I lost 50% of my technique. What is happening? Or maybe you forget something in the piece and you have a memory lapse, or all these things cross your mind while you're performing, and it can really hinder your performance. Like, performance anxiety, I think, is a real thing. The first thing I'm going to say is just practice. There is no substitute for practicing. If you have not practiced, to the best of your ability, how can you expect your performance to go well? You know what I mean? So there's no substitute for that. And there's a saying that says, the more preparation, the less perspiration, right? If you practice to the best of your ability, you can get up on stage and, tell yourself, I have practiced to the best of my ability. I've done everything possible within my power to play well. And that is something that you should, kind of be able to sit back and rely on that, just knowing that you've practiced. If you haven't practiced to the best of your ability, then yeah, you just want to make sure that you do that one. That's an obvious one, but make sure that you've done it. Number 2 is to know the sections of your piece. So for me, one of the most scary things I think when I'm performing is I always have this fear that I'm going to forget the next section, or that I might not know what my fingers are doing, or I might forget the shape. But one way to combat that is, in my music, I will section off each part of the piece, and I'll put section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, so that when I'm playing the piece, if I were to have a memory lapse, I can immediately just jump to section 2, right? And if I had a memory lapse in section 2, boom, I can jump to section 3, right? And you know exactly where all of those points are. Usually it's like at a cadence, or it's somewhere that feels very, very natural, but you can even practice that like jumping in your music, right? You might be playing something and then you might say, okay, let's just pretend I had a memory lapse right there. Boom, where's the next section? And you need to know where those sections are so that at a moment's notice, you can jump. And if you can do it well, sometimes people won't even realize that you made a mistake. So that is the second practical tip that I have for you. The third practical thing that you can do to perform better is to play your piece in front of people before the concert. I would highly, highly recommend that you not make the first performance of your piece the one that's in front of all the people for like the real performance, okay? Please do not do that. If you can, try to play it in front of a friend, try to play it in front of a family member as many times as you can, maybe even on different days and things, so you can get a test run. And maybe if you make a mistake on one section, you can go back and practice it, try to perform it again, and see if you can fix those problems. Because a lot of times when you perform in front of people, it can expose weak points. And a lot of time those weak points are places that you didn't think were weak, right? I've done that before where, like, man, I really thought I knew this part, and I was playing in front of a friend, and it's like, man, I completely failed that section. So I need to go back and work on that. So I highly recommend try to get some of those practice repetitions or performance practice repetitions, because it's a much different feeling when you're just by yourself playing in a room than when you're trying to present in front of other people, because you have other eyes looking at you. I remember when I was an undergrad student, me and the guitarist, whenever we had a performance coming up, we would go into the music building and we'd go into the stairwell because it was high and the sound was good. We had all this reverb in there. But we would play for each other and we would make comments and corrections if there was need be. And we would just try to help each other get better. And usually we would do that like a day or two before the actual performance. So play in front of people, because that is one of the best ways to get your practice repetitions or your performance practice repetitions in. I would say if you do those 3 practical things, you are much more likely to be successful when you play it in public for your performance. So now I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the mental aspects of performing. So the next one, which is number 4, is your mindset. Okay, it is super important to have a positive mindset about your performance. Okay, now this is much easier said than done. I don't know why we as humans typically tend to gravitate towards negative thoughts, and I'm super guilty of this too. Like sometimes I'll picture myself performing and forgetting the section, right? Like why am I having that thought, right? That thought does nothing for me. That does nothing positive or productive for me. So if your mind tends to go in that direction, say, no, I reject that thought, and replace it with a thought of you performing well and a thought of you performing it to the best of your ability, because negative thoughts are not going to help you. So you want to make sure that you go into your performance with a positive mindset, and anytime those negative thoughts try to come in, just say, no, I delete those, or you can even recognize them. So I've heard some people say you recognize that you feel nervous and whatnot, but you're going to kind of overcome those. But I usually like to kind of delete those thoughts and replace it with a positive one, because the positive ones are more productive than the negative ones. Number 5 is to be confident. Now, this might sound really simple, but you just want to be confident in who you are, confident in your presence and your ability as a musician. A lot of times you might see people get up on stage and they kind of let their nervousness show, and the audience can tend to pick up on that. And you want to make your audience feel, as comfortable as possible. So I would say be confident in who you are and just kind of be yourself. Number 6 is a tricky one, and one that I struggle with a lot personally, but that is don't judge yourself and don't judge what you think other people are thinking about you, okay? This one is super hard because sometimes when you're playing in the moment, you might make a mistake and think, oh my gosh, I just messed that up. Now the whole audience knows that I messed it up, when in reality, they might actually not know that you messed it up. And in reality, after the concert, usually no one really says, oh my gosh, you messed up that part right there. No, usually it's the opposite. They're like, I really enjoyed your performance. That was amazing, right? You usually hear good feedback. And so the idea with this is don't judge yourself while you're playing, and don't judge what you think other people are thinking about you while you're playing, okay? Much easier said than done. But there's a story that when I was studying with Christopher Parkening, he told us this story that he went out on stage to go play a concert, and he said when he sat down, he saw John Williams in the front row and was like, oh my gosh, John Williams is at my concert and now I have to play in front of him. And so he starts playing his concert and he made a mistake, and he thought to himself, oh, John wouldn't have missed that note, keep playing. Maybe makes another tiny mistake. It's Parkening. Of course, he didn't do anything crazy, but he made a tiny mistake and think, oh my gosh, John Williams wouldn't have messed that one up, right? And then at the end of the concert, John Williams comes up to him and he realizes, oh my gosh, it's not even John Williams. Like this whole time I was so worried and I was so judging what he thought somebody was thinking about him, and that person wasn't even the person that he thought it was. So that is another one, is don't judge yourself and don't judge what you think others are thinking about you. Number 7 is to be yourself. Now, I know I kind of already mentioned this, but is to be yourself and be you when you're playing. Because if you think about it, every human on the planet, right, is unique. Don't try to play like somebody else. Don't try to be like somebody else. Try to be you and show your musicality, because nobody has the hands that you have, right? So, which means nobody can play like you. Nobody has the musical sensibility that you have, right? That is unique to you, your personality, and your spirit. So embrace yourself and just be confident in that. I think a lot of times you hear another guitarist or you hear another musician and you think, okay, I have to sound like this, or I have to, play it like this, or I have to phrase it like this, right? That's all fine, if you're trying to, get better and stuff. But when you're performing, don't try to sound like anybody else, right? Just try to be yourself, sound like yourself, and be confident that I'm going to be me because I am unique, right? Number 8 is to be in the giving mode and not in the receiving mode. So when you're playing, you don't want to like think to yourself like, am I receiving, good feedback from people? Are people enjoying it or not? You want to just be in the mindset that you're here to give the gift of music, right? It's something that's quite special. And usually when people leave a performance or a concert, whether it went good or bad, they're typically more happy, than when they arrived, because you fulfilled them by, showing your spirit and your musicality to them, and they appreciate that more than you might even know. So it's just good to be in that giving mindset, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in the, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I don't know what's going to happen. And then at that point, you're just concerned about yourself, and you're not giving. So be in the giving mode and not in the receiving mode. Number 9 is our final one. And this is something that I wish I realized a long time ago, and I didn't, but I realize it now. And that is the audience feels what you feel. Okay. I used to have this like weird mindset with the audience that, the audience has no idea like how hard this piece is that I'm playing. And yeah, maybe that's true, but like they have no idea like what I'm going through as I play this, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that's actually not true. Your audience is not dumb, okay? Your audience can sense and feel. Maybe they're not even aware of this, but they can sense and feel what you feel usually. So if you feel nervous, your audience is gonna feel a little bit nervous with you, right? If you feel relaxed and you feel like, you're giving something, the audience will feel that and receive it. So I really think that this is something that is important, is to keep in mind that your audience feels what you feel. So maybe if you're feeling nervous, a lot of times I think it can be helpful maybe to say something to your audience instead of just kind of only playing guitar and not saying something. You can say something, maybe you can crack a joke if something happens. I don't know, like you drop your music or something. You can make an expression, and sometimes that kind of breaks the tension that you might be feeling. So the audience feels what you feel. They're there for you. They're on your side. Those are some things that I hope will help you all perform better. There are many other aspects that you can kind of tie into performance anxiety. There's other things you can do. It's really unlimited. So many people have different preferences, but these are kind of like 9 important ones that I think are quite essential. So try those out. Let me know what you guys think about them, or let me know what you do. Let me know what you do before a performance, if you have any rituals that you find that are super helpful. I know some people like to maybe eat a banana or chocolate before they perform to kind of make them feel good and relax. There's so many different things you can do. But I hope that's helpful, and I hope that you guys can try to put some of those into practice so that when you perform, you can perform to the best of your ability. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.